Greetings, members one and all of the Salivation Nation. In this case, the criminals will not get away with a gold or silver parachute. Let's explore! In other cases, though, and we've seen it, some of them sanctioned by the government with big bailouts. These executives get these golden parachutes, as it were, for doing kind of nefarious or unethical activity. It may be legal, but much of it is unethical at times. Regardless, though, in this case, it is blatant loan fraud that we're talking about. And they didn't get away with it, but they tried. Yes, indeed, they did. I'm referencing a story that was sent to me by the artist formerly known as Gold Bear Bunny, and this is coming to us from NDTV. In India, 431 kilos of gold and silver have been seized from secret lockers of a firm in a bank fraud case. Yes, indeed, and this is the premises of Raksha Bullion and Classic Marbles that was raided in connection with the case against a company called Parekh Aluminex Limited. So yes, indeed. So there's three different organizations involved, but the criminal one is Parekh Aluminex Limited, according to the federal agency there in India. And I do like to cover stories, as does Gold Bear Bunny knows, that I do like to cover stories of precious metals crimes. I have a playlist if you want to see some of the past videos and there but also just like to cover different topics with precious metals. So I hope you will consider subscribing if you haven't done so already, and press the notification bell so that you can be apprised, and maybe even thumb up the video if it's not too much to ask. If it is too much to ask, just gently brush it until it turns colors. In New Delhi, the Enforcement Directorate seized 431 kilos of gold and silver worth more than 47 crore. Whatever that is. I guess it's not these rubles, but rubles are, I'm not sure exactly. I'm not going to do the math on it, but we know it's worth a heck of a lot of money. That's after it searched secret lockers of a bullion company as part of a money laundering probe linked to an alleged bank loan fraud case. Now, this was in India by this company. It makes me wonder if perhaps they may be behind some of the calls that I've been getting. For those of you who aren't familiar, to come on the live streams or look at the playlist called Sala Marketing, I get a lot of calls, and many of them come from India. And who knows, maybe this organization, Parekh Aluminex, I've spoke to some of them on the phone, perhaps. The premises of Raksha Bullion and Classic Marbles were raided in connection with a case against this company, Parekh Aluminex, according to the federal agency's statement that they gave. During these raids, keys of some private lockers were found at the premise of the bullion company, it said. Upon searching the private lockers, it was found that the locker operation was being done without following proper norms. No KYC was followed, and there was no CCTV camera installed at the premises, and there was no in and out register, it said. So that is a kind of an interesting thing. So maybe that company did have something to do with it in connection, and maybe there was some sort of conspiracy there, and they were involved. The premise had 761 lockers, of which 3 belonged to Raksha Bullion, it said. Upon operating the lockers, and obviously opening them as well, 91.5 kilos of gold bars, 152 kilos of silver was found in 2 lockers, which was seized. That's just in 2 lockers alone. Then an additional 188 kilos of silver was also seized from the premises of Raksha Bullion. The total value of the seized gold and silver was, well, a lot of money, the Enforcement Directorate said. The money laundering case against Parekh Aluminex Limited dates back to March 2018, where it was alleged that the company cheated banks and took loans to the tune of a lot of money there, a heck of a lot of money. So they cheated banks, but I don't know. So maybe they weren't involved with calling people and trying to scam Americans, but nonetheless, still, The money, the enforcement director claimed, was thereafter siphoned off by layering through various different companies. And I tell you what, they were smart. And of course, India, it's a part of their culture. Gold is very much a part of their culture. But anybody would be smart to siphon it off and put it into an asset like gold. The money was routed to various accounts in context of providing unsecured loans and investments. The same was not the purpose of taking loans, and there was no agreements in place for such transactions, the agency said. It had earlier attached assets worth more than 205 crore in the case in 2019. So yes, indeed, this is quite a story and quite a lot of precious metals there, for sure. I mean, gold and silver, untraceable, untrackable in and of themselves until they ever find a way to do that. And even as such, people find ways around it all the time. We know what happened in a criminal case where I covered a video of this too, from the Bode Museum, or Bode Museum in Germany, where the Royal Canadian Mint's one of $5 million coins that weighed like 200 and some odd kilos or what have you. I'm not sure exactly the weight of it, but it was very, very heavy. Was stolen by several people, and upon that theft, it was chopped up and melted down and nowhere to be discovered again. Now, obviously, I think that was a very high purity gold, but still, nonetheless, there's no other markers on it. I mean, gold is gold. It can come from anywhere. It can be reconstituted and resold. Likely some of the gold that you may have in your possession very well could have been transferred from ages ago from the ancient Egyptians to being in the teeth of Jews from the concentration camps, and depending on how you source the gold through the ages. So you never know. I mean, gold in and of itself, it has no agenda, and which means that it can be used for good and for bad. And some people want to try to find a way to control the gold market in that regard as to how it's sourced and what gold comes from where. But obviously, if you stamp a gold bar that says this has been ethically sourced, well, that can mean only so much if it's melted down again. And same thing with any other gold that comes from some other unethical means or environmentally unfriendly means and uses a lot of mercury and open pit mining and the like, especially in Peru and South American gold mines. It can be constituted and create a fake or a real genuine gold bar that has a stamp that is very similar to the ones that are ethically sourced and stamped. But some of the counterfeiting techniques are pretty amazing. But there's also anti-counterfeiting techniques that could be applied to these larger gold bars as well. But nonetheless, I think the overall arching argument here is that gold can be utilized in a lot of different ways, and the criminals in this case were smart up to a degree, as their golden parachute literally was made of gold and silver in this case. And if they were to be able to escape prosecution or arrest, they could have taken that gold and silver and hustled off somewhere and lived off the sales of said gold bars and silver. And especially since they live in an area, in a country where, gold is probably transacted relatively easy. And they could probably make their way into Dubai, cash it out, and take the money and live high on the hog, as it were. With that much kilo, with that much gold and silver, the criminals could have at least done something to kind of protect themselves for the meantime, hide their identities, you never know. But they didn't get away with it. They found justice, and justice found them, for sure. So there it is. And let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below for stories like this. If you enjoy videos of this nature, again, I encourage you to check out the playlist. I may post a link to it at the end screen of this video as well, because a lot of interesting things happening in the news with relation to precious metals. And even though we don't like to hear about crimes being committed with gold and silver, at least it brings attention to gold and silver as a store of value. And that's always a good thing. And that's one of the reasons why I cover stories like this in my videos. So I hope you enjoyed it. I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch. And again, encourage you to please rate share, comment, and slurp.